This is a Hot Pie Media original.
He is Pierre Rochard of the podcast Knotted Bitcoin Podcast. Or do I say noted?
I think noted.
Noted, sorry.
Knotted sounds like the audience is going to fall asleep.
Yeah. Right. We don't need that right now. We can't because the storyline is too sexy at this point. So not even I can make this boring. All right, Pierre, by the way, you bought Bitcoin at what number?
I feel uncomfortable getting to that topic. I did not buy enough. That's why I find it embarrassing. So
okay,
that's generally the story in this space is people lamenting that they did not go in early enough and big enough.
All right, let's do this. So the reason why I don't know what it is right now. I haven't checked. So Bitcoin hits a record high yesterday. By the way, the market itself, which I think is that's an important part of this discussion, I think, and you're going to educate the rest of us. You're going to educate us on Bitcoin. I know the market, but I don't know the relationship to Bitcoin because I thought just the opposite was supposed to happen. But the two of them skyrocketed yesterday. So Bitcoin hits, what was it, 66,000?
Yeah, almost 67.
Okay.
It really got close there.
I know you've done this before, and it may feel ridiculous. Tell people exactly what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, absolutely. I never tire of talking about it. It's my favorite topic to discuss. So Bitcoin fundamentally is two things. One, it's a ledger, so it's a accounting system that is decentralized. And so everybody can run the database themselves, download the whole ledger history, cryptographically verify that all the rules are being followed. And so they don't have to trust a bank or some other kind of third party. Two is that it is the currency of this ledger. It's the native unit, the BTC, that is being transacted back and forth. And so that currency, that asset, is not backed by anything. So it's not backed by dollars or by gold. Rather, it's backed by that network, that decentralized network that is, at this point, global and operating 24/7.
Okay. As an expert in educating the rest of us, and I think this giant number and the storylines and the regulation and making it to being to a exchange, like what trends does somebody look for, if any? I mean, we get that scarcity is driving up the value, but like what realistic trends are there? Somebody to say, hey, Pierre, how'd you know? I mean, did you know it's going to go to 67? And how do you know? And what do you look for to say it's going to go to 40?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the short-term price is a bit of a roll of the dice. It's very volatile. It can move on basically no news. Which really reflects that the price is driven by actual cash coming in and out of who's buying, who's selling, rather than what the headlines are on any given day. Now, so what I look for is, first of all, long-term. So I'm looking for long-term value accrual, and that is driven by real adoption. So are people actually going out and adopting Bitcoin? Is the network growing at the grassroots level? And we have seen tremendous increases in adoption over the past 10 years, but even over the past year, right? We have the entire country of El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. So I think that trend's going to continue because the adoption drivers, right? What is the magnetic pull that is dragging people into Bitcoin, kicking and screaming sometimes? Well, it's its properties of the freedom it gives people. It gives people so much more freedom than any other asset in the world, whether it's the freedom to receive it by just creating a wallet. You don't need to get anyone's permission to create a wallet. You don't have to open an account. You don't have to have a physical fixed address. You don't have to have a social security number. You don't need ID, right? It's like voting. So you can just create your wallet. And it's open source free software. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. And that allows you to receive Bitcoin, and then you can just hold it. Nobody's going to force you to spend it, right? With dollars, they force people into spending dollars with inflation. So they say, hey, don't hold dollars because you need to go out and spend it. Otherwise, it'll lose value. The opposite is true in Bitcoin.
But
right?
But I'm looking at, I hear the headlines, and I mean, again, this is enough. This is enough of a conversation to get the average person to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I don't know if you like that or you dislike that. I mean, it's probably good for the podcast, but I don't know what you think of that in terms of the investment itself. But so somebody says, okay, all right, got it, 67. I'm trying to come up with metrics. I'm trying to come up with, do I get out? Do I stay? I know you're saying, hey, look, I'm going to preach to all of you, stay in long term, write it out, don't look, I get that. That's sensible information, but we're not sensible investors. So somebody's hearing this stuff going, time to bail, time to buy. Is there a way other than the beauty of it is it's volatile? Enjoy the volatility and roll the dice, or is there a metric that the old school investor could follow now and say, I want in?
So absolutely. So experience tells me, from my gut, is that we're halfway through the bull market. Now,
bull market in the stocks or bull market in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin.
Okay.
In Bitcoin.
Right.
So sometimes that coincides with the bull market in stocks.
Right.
Sometimes it doesn't. And really what it's driven by is the halving. So the halving is that the quantity of Bitcoin being added to the ledger gets cut in half every 4 years. And that triggers a bull market.
Okay.
Less supply, and the price starts ramping up. And then it goes parabolic because everyone's piling in, and you've got the animal spirits, the people getting carried away. So I think we're halfway into that upswing. Traditionally, if we look at December 2017 or December of 2013, right, we're talking 4 years, 8 years ago. Not a coincidence, right? That's when the top is. And so we saw the top at 1,200 in 2013, and then we saw the top at 20,000 in 2017. And so now the question is, what's the top going to be in this cycle? And that's really tough. That's really tough to figure out. There's a lot of variables at play. We know that governments have printed a ton of money over the past 18 months, 2 years. And so it's a different environment than it was in 2017 and 2013. And that makes me more bullish.
Okay. Yeah, because very, very amateur observation, which I think a lot of us amateurs probably adopted, and that is we started to think, we didn't know like you do, but we started to think, wait a minute, isn't Bitcoin a hedge? And now all of a sudden the market goes up and Bitcoin follows it. So it makes me stand back and say, wait a minute, I thought, sort of like gold, I thought Bitcoin was a hedge against. So how do I weigh, this seems like a rarity that both of them would skyrocket at the same time. Is that an incorrect observation?
So Bitcoin operates on its own time frame, and there can be overlap with other asset classes for kind of the bull and bear market, but it's that 4-year cycle that it's operating on. And in terms of it being a hedge, if we look at Bitcoin's fundamentals, it's the least uncertain system in the world. And by uncertain, I don't mean that it's not volatile or anything. I just mean that the actual software engineering behind it is super solid. And its cryptographic properties are super solid. And that means that if you look at, for example, a graph of the money supply of dollars, you see a lot of volatility there, right? Where suddenly they create trillions of dollars out of thin air. You don't have that in Bitcoin. And so it's kind of an inverse, where Bitcoin has a very steady money supply and a very volatile exchange rate, whereas the dollar has a very volatile money supply and what they claim to be a steady rate of inflation of exchange rate.
Right.
But the reality is, as we're seeing, that can go off the rails very quickly with this inflation happening.
How accurate is it to look at as an investment, like I would maybe art or something?
So
is that in a similar framework? I'm trying to figure out mindsets for people. Like, what kind of mindset can they come to this place? Is a mindset kind of like art?
So it is. And in a lot of ways, it's very foreign to us because it's Bitcoin's a money. And traditionally, when you held money, it was just called saving, right? You just put money under your mattress. And that got killed off by these fiat currencies, where it doesn't make any sense to put money under your mattress,
Right.
because it's going to get inflated away. And so Bitcoin's bringing back an old tradition of, people holding gold coins, except now it's in a digital format, and its value is increasing even more quickly than the value of gold was back in the 19th century, when you had deflation under gold that really created the middle class around the world. And so we could draw parallels to other assets. But fundamentally, it's a money, and so we don't buy it for its aesthetic value like we might art, but we do buy it for the purchasing power that it will hold and increase in, and that's very foreign to us, right? Of having our purchasing power increase 10x.
So, world events. You said it's El Salvador that has made it. Bitcoin is its currency. Most of the headlines are for adoption, but then you have the Chinese who are getting markets to react like crazy for any number of reasons, their own selfish communist reasons. They don't want people to be wealthy, essentially. But that spooks. If I'm an investor, that's a giant market. So in terms of world events, what matters as an investor?
So the news that we saw come out of China is that they banned all Bitcoin mining.
Yeah.
And really their intent is to use the Chinese yuan, their currency, as Chuck E. Cheese tokens, right? Like they want everyone using that in their system, and they want to be able to hand out Chinese yuan to foreign countries to get their natural resources, to make China more powerful. And so it makes sense for them that they want to control the whole system. They want to have full surveillance. They want to track everything. They don't want people buying things they shouldn't be buying, right? They want to have a totalitarian society. And when they banned Bitcoin mining, what happened is that a little over half of the Bitcoin mining was happening in China when they banned it. And within weeks, what we saw is that these large Bitcoin miners, they took
now, by the way, to be clear, when you're saying mining, you mean there's actual mining of not a gold, actual mining of a metal.
Of Bitcoin, of a digital asset.
I know.
So the way it works is that you have these specialized computers called mining rigs, but they've got specialized processors in them,
right,
that are basically filling out lottery tickets to win the next block, right, which is a set of transactions going through the system, and that lets them earn new Bitcoin being created, but as well as transaction fees that are part of that block, and so you've got these data centers that are filled with these specialized computers, thousands of them, that consume hundreds of megawatts of electricity. And what the Chinese miners did is that they took all of that computer equipment, they stacked it onto pallets, they put it into large cargo airplanes, and they flew them out of China. And they flew them all around the world. A lot of them landed in Texas. Yeah. Because Texas loves Bitcoin. Governor Abbott was one of the first major politicians. When he first ran for governor in 2014, he accepted Bitcoin donations to his campaign. He's fully on board with Bitcoin, and he wants Texas to have lots of Bitcoin mining here. And interestingly, one of the reasons to have Bitcoin mining in Texas is that it will help stabilize our electricity grid. The cool thing about Bitcoin mining is that when you have a winter ice storm that comes down on the state, you can shut down all of the mining facilities and, for 5 days, and all of that power will be diverted to people heating their homes. And so it gives us that optionality.
Wait. I just have another amateur thought. Yeah. So should I buy and sell on the prediction of a winter storm?
Well, the Bitcoin system is so robust that you can turn off
Okay, that was a
all
no.
of these miners for a
was a
few
no.
days, and nobody will notice.
Okay. So that was a no. John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of Atx Hot Sauce in all 50 states, now in several retail outlets as well. So we're going to turn it over to the social media rock chef superstar, and we're going to walk through a few sauces and why you should buy. We've done beet heat, so we're second in line now for the tasting. Don't forget, everyone, go to atxhotsauce.com. So here we go.
All right, so this one is our smoked habanero 5-pepper. We smoke habaneros with ancho,
Is that going to hurt?
This one? No,
Yeah.
This one's actually really, really good.
Okay.
This is like your traditional tapatía, but without the vinegar in it, right? And because of that fermentation process that we've talked about all the time. This one is great on sandwiches, pizzas, things like that. Great on hot wings. I think you're going to really like this one too, especially the smoky flavor with the adobe chipotle and the smoked habaneros. We actually smoked the habaneros before we.
Does that go with a cab?
This would not go with the cab. This would go with the great Chenin Blanc, though.
I teed you up with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
That is good. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Good. It's just classic take. Well, it's a new take on a classic item. So it's called smoked habanero 5-pepper.
All right, don't forget
One of my
ATX.
favorites.
Don't forget atxhotsauce.com.
That's
I'm a strategist. I'm just constantly thinking like, what am I got to look for an in? I got to look for an out. I thought I was onto something. Okay, keep going.
Well, so some of these Bitcoin miners here in the U.S. are publicly traded, so that's something to look at as well.
Okay.
Personally, I'm on the advisory board of Riot Blockchain. So they've got a huge facility out here in Texas, Windstone, and it's already the largest in the United States, and they're doubling its capacity, and they're really innovating. They're adding immersion cooling so that it's the chips, the computers are actually submerged in mineral oil for cooling. Which is great during those hot Texas summers. And yeah, they're at the cutting edge, and they're right here in Texas.
So the world of the jump to 67, are you just saying that that's fitting into the 4-year cycle, or it's an aberration? Don't, like most of us, our financial planner would say, don't look, just stay in. What was the reason for the jump to 67?
Well, the crash to 30, right?
Okay.
And so there was a major correction because really prices can't go up more than a certain percentage amount before you see people taking profits.
Okay. Yeah.
And
so
when
then
they
that
start
way it's
taking
just like the market.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And there's dynamics there where there's a speed limit to how fast the price can go up. No matter how great the fundamentals are, no matter how many tailwinds the asset has, there's going to be corrections along the way. This was a big correction, right? It was a 50% correction.
Wow.
And it just reflected that Bitcoin went from March 12th of 2020 with the COVID crash. It went down to almost $3,000, and then it went on a tear up to $60,000, which reflects a 20x increase. That's the speed limit, right? You hit that speed limit, you're going to get pulled over, and so Bitcoin got pulled over, but then it went right back to where it was supposed to go, and so I think that reflects that Bitcoin is in a secular bull market. There will be big corrections along the way. But I don't think that we're near the top.
What's the top?
That's anybody's
Well,
guess.
I know that's the standard dumb talk show question. Oh, tell me exactly what it's going to be. I know, but
Bitcoin's so volatile. I've got to put a big range around it. So I'd say 100 to 600.
So it everything you just said, it shoots up to, just like the market itself, shoots up to the market. Both of them did it yesterday. 67. Is there a sell-off then today? People taking money out?
We're seeing that. We're seeing people definitely take profits and kind of take a breather here, and buyers trying to wait out the market to see if it'll subside. But yeah, there's a huge amount of buy pressure. There's a lot of institutions that have been wanting to get in. And it takes a while for them to get in because they've got to move things through investment committees. They got compliance departments that are, ticking check boxes. So they're slow moving. But now they're getting that feeling of fear of missing out, right? Yeah. They want to panic buy. So there's that. And then on the supply side, the Bitcoin miners, they are actually, instead of selling the Bitcoin that they mine, they're just adding it to their balance sheet, and they're tapping the capital markets, whether it's debt or equity, to be able to finance their ongoing operations and expansions. So we're seeing a bit of a supply shock there as well. Now that things have settled with the move from China.
I mean, we've known. Again, I'm making this mistake, but I think a lot of people are trying this because this is now so mainstream, right? I mean, whether that's great for you or not, I suspect it's great for you, but it's so mainstream. We know corrections. We know history of corrections. We know even a range. If you follow it all, if you try to follow it all, the market's sort of range, right? We have rules in place. It can't drop so far. So someone's looking to get in, they're saying, man, I can't get in at 67. By the way, you can buy a small percentage of a Bitcoin. So it doesn't have to be 67. Correct?
That's right. You can buy $20 worth of Bitcoin at a time. And that's really what I recommend is dip your toes into it, dollar cost average, buy a little every week. That way you're kind of getting a blended price and you're not accidentally buying the top or trying to time the market, because it's just so hard. I'm throwing out numbers here, I'm spitballing, but I've never been successful at timing the market. Yeah. So my approach is to just buy a little, whenever you have some free cash, just throw it into Bitcoin, and come back 4 years later with a smile on your face.
Okay, so you were about, I think you're in a very tactful way saying settle down, because I was about to try to pick apart. Somebody wants to get in. Come on, Pierre, tell me where that next dip is. And you're saying you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, because there might not be a next dip. The next dip, the bottom of the next dip might be 70K, right? If it runs up to 90 and then it dips down to 70. Then there's really no rhyme or reason to trying to get a better deal than what's available in the market today, versus kind of just easing into it and letting the chips fall where they may.
It's now a part of, I don't know, most people's portfolio. Is that fair to say? I mean, it's a conversation that's happening for your average investor, correct?
Directly. So most of the index fund ETFs have some indirect exposure to Bitcoin because an underlying company holds Bitcoin or is somehow involved in the industry. And in terms of direct exposure, that's getting easier and easier. So we're hearing from the SEC that they're going to be approving more and more ETFs that hold Bitcoin or that use futures to track the price of Bitcoin. And it's also getting easier and easier because you've got apps like Robinhood, PayPal, Cash App these are mainstream financial apps that have added Bitcoin to them. So people can get direct exposure to Bitcoin through all these retail apps.
That's a great point. How far, as you project ahead, because it's obviously now happening, but how far are we away from Bitcoin being an across-the-board currency anywhere and everywhere?
I think this cycle is going to bring it there. It's already basically a trillion.
By the way, the cycle is defined how?
So if we look at the 4-year cycle, I would say the next cycle will start in 2024. And so I think that if we say that the top of the cycle is going to be in the next 6 months, it's those last few days of the bull market where everybody's talking about it, right? We saw that in December of 2017. And that's when it was really saturating the airwaves, and it's on CNBC every day. Yeah. And everyone's asking themselves, is today the top? And we're seeing, the price go up by $10,000 per day or something like that.
Okay. What have I what have I read about it? Make Bitcoin being traded on the market. Is that, explain that?
Yeah, that's right. So for a long time, the only option to trade Bitcoin from your traditional brokerage account, in the stock market as an ETF was GBTC, which is not quite an ETF. It's kind of a private type of thing, but if you wanted to buy it at the same exchange rate as Bitcoin, you had to be a big institutional investor. But if you wanted to buy it on the secondary market, from somebody else, then you could buy it at a discount or at a premium. It used to be trading a premium, a significant premium to Bitcoin. Now it's trading at a discount to Bitcoin. The problem with GBTC, from my point of view, is the fees associated with it. It's a very high percentage fee that you're paying out to the company that does GBTC. And so that's where I really encourage people to look at other options outside of the traditional brokerage account, where you sign up at one of these exchanges or at a brokerage. There's some really solid brokerages out there now that are really focused on Bitcoin. So, for example, Swan or River.com, where you can set up a dollar cost averaging and be buying a little bit of Bitcoin. I'm not associated with those companies, but I've heard good things about them.
So how is somebody supposed to take in Ethereum, Dogecoin? I mean, somebody now paying attention is going to go, man, Mark Cuban's saying this, Elon Musk is saying this, and those things are going crazy. How do I play that against what my Bitcoin investment is? I mean, am I now do I need to diversify, or what is your advice there?
Yeah, so generally, when we think about the stock market and diversification, that's because we're trying to lower our risk, right?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to have what they call the beta of the market, right? What's the market as a whole going to do versus the alpha of the market of the idiosyncrasies of these companies, which company is going to grow faster than the other company. When I look at cryptocurrencies and I look at their fundamentals, when you buy Ethereum or any of these other cryptocurrencies, you're adding risk. So it's actually more like leverage. So if you're comfortable with adding leverage of saying, hey, look, I'm not satisfied with these Bitcoin returns, I want to juice my returns and take on more risk, then you can do that with these other cryptocurrencies. But really what you should be doing is adding leverage on your Bitcoin. So, borrowing against your Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin, that's going to give you more pure leverage. These other cryptocurrencies, what you should be looking at them for is not for their outperforming Bitcoin. Rather, you should be looking at them do they have functionality that I want to use? Because Bitcoin's like digital gold, Ethereum's like oil. You don't buy gasoline as an investment, right? Even if you think the price of gas is going to go up, that would be pretty inconvenient. You use gasoline to go somewhere. And so if you're looking to do something on the Ethereum network with utility, then you would go fill up your tank of ETH and just specifically for doing that thing. Now, I personally haven't had any use cases for actually using Ethereum. So I can't speak from experience there, but I would definitely not, invest in it as a long-term investment. It might be great for a short-term trade if you're a professional trader who's watching the markets 24/7. But if you're, looking to just save some money, put some money aside, then I think that going with Bitcoin only is the way to do it.
How the feds are going about treating Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, I mean, it brings credibility, I guess. Maybe you could argue it brings some assurance, mainstream assurance. What are your thoughts? I mean, so if I sell today, I'm paying capital gains tax, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And so
where is regulation going beyond the obvious paying X% on what I cash out on?
Yeah, absolutely. So where regulation is going is that they want to have total surveillance. So they want to be able to know exactly what you're spending your money on. And we saw this recently with Janet Yellen saying that she wants all the data about everything above $600.
Right.
She wants to put it all in her database so that she can keep track of everyone and make sure that everyone's paying their taxes. And then eventually that'll stretch into making sure nobody's buying anything that they shouldn't be buying, right?
Yeah.
They want to control everything. And there's a lot of overlap between these control freaks and the communists in China. And this is bipartisan. This isn't Democrats versus Republicans, right? Because Republicans want to make sure that you're not spending your dollars on marijuana. And Democrats want to make sure you're not spending your dollars on guns, right? So each party has transactions that they want to censor. Both parties want to get the taxes out of you, right? Republicans, sure, they'll vote in tax cuts, but they know that in order to pay for this gigantic global military, that they've got to get tax revenue from somewhere, right? It doesn't pay for itself. And so both parties are trying to tax more, and that involves more surveillance. And so the regulations on Bitcoin that they're going for is, let's make sure that every little Bitcoin transaction is fully KYC'd. We want to make sure that everyone has their 1099 or whatever tax filings squared away so that every nickel is going into Janet's pocket.
But doesn't that? Yeah, don't. I'm not going to argue the overreach, but the thinking would be, hey, if I'm investing in Disney and I'm buying and selling Disney, wouldn't Bitcoin want to be treated the same way? I mean, Bitcoin may not want it, but if I, as an investor, are going to want to say, look, I mean, I want to know the rules and regulations of everything I'm playing with here. So why not make Bitcoin the same as Disney stock?
So that's entirely correct. The problem is a very practical one, that Disney is not decentralized, right? So Disney has a corporate structure. They're a Delaware corporation. They report everything to the IRS. They've got lawyers. They've got accountants. Bitcoin doesn't have that. Bitcoin's just this decentralized software. So there's nothing in the Bitcoin system that enables this kind of tax information tracking. And that's the challenge that the IRS is facing.
Yeah. What is the solution? Right. I mean, if you're right now, what are you supposed to do? Just be honest enough to download a 1099 or whatever and fill it out correctly?
It's on the honor system. And, that's not, they don't like that.
Yeah.
But there's kind of nothing they can do about it,
right? Because
it is decentralized. And so if they try to shut it down, it'll just move to other countries. People will use VPNs to access it. They'll use the darknet market, or they'll have a Bitcoin dealer, on street corners. You got your Bitcoin guy, you go buy your Bitcoins from them.
The trunk of your car.
Yeah.
What is it trading at right now, by the way? What is a Bitcoin?
Let's see. So it's been bouncing around a good amount, but we're looking at 62. So it's dipping.
Okay. Buy the dip, right? I know. I'm not. I know you're being too practical.
Buy the dip. Just keep buying.
All right. Fascinating as always. Great stuff, Pierre. It's Noted Bitcoin Podcasts. Make sure everybody check it out. Thanks for doing this again and being a calming voice in all of this.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff. Anytime.
All right.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's the Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.